5 Non-Negotiable Rules to Protect Your Peace in a Fake World. The world has never been louder. Every day, someone is trying to tell you how to think, what to believe, who to become, and what success should look like. Social media rewards performance over authenticity. Relationships are often built on convenience rather than loyalty. People smile to your face, yet secretly celebrate your failures. In a world like this, peace has become one of the rarest forms of wealth. Most people spend their lives chasing happiness, but very few learn how to protect their peace. And without peace, happiness never lasts. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. They knew that suffering doesn't begin with the world around us. It begins the moment we surrender control of our minds to things we cannot control. The opinions of others, the need for validation, constant comparison, endless noise. These are the invisible thieves that rob us of a calm and meaningful life. Protecting your peace doesn't mean running away from the world. It means learning to stand firmly within it without allowing its chaos to become your own. It means becoming the kind of person whose inner world remains steady, even when everything outside is falling apart. In this video, we'll explore 5 non-negotiable rules that can help you preserve your peace in a world that often rewards pretense over truth. These aren't temporary life hacks or motivational slogans. They are timeless principles rooted in Stoic wisdom, psychology, and the realities of human nature. If you're tired of unnecessary drama, emotional exhaustion, and living according to other people's expectations, stay with me until the end. One of these rules may completely change the way you see yourself and the people around you. Point 1. Stop explaining yourself to everyone. One of the greatest sources of inner turmoil is the need to be understood by everyone. We explain our choices, defend our decisions, justify our boundaries, and seek approval from people who have already made up their minds about us. We convince ourselves that if we can only find the right words, they will finally understand, but they rarely do. Not because you failed to explain, but because understanding was never their intention. A fake world feeds on your reactions. The more you defend yourself, the more power you hand over to people who thrive on judgment, gossip, and misunderstanding. You become emotionally dependent, unchanging opinions that were never yours to control. The Stoics recognized a painful truth. You cannot reason someone out of a conclusion they never reasoned themselves into. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that people will misunderstand, criticize, and misjudge you. Your responsibility is not to control their thoughts, but to control your response. Every unnecessary explanation is a quiet admission that your peace depends on someone else's approval. There is strength in silence. Silence is not weakness. It is confidence that no longer feels the need to perform. When your actions are guided by principles rather than applause, explanations become unnecessary. People who genuinely care about you will seek understanding before passing judgment. Those who are determined to misunderstand you will twist even your clearest explanation. Choose your audience wisely. Protect your energy. Let your character speak longer than your words ever could. Here's a real-life example. Imagine 2 colleagues who are both overlooked for a promotion. The first spends weeks explaining why he deserved it, complaining to everyone who will listen, and trying to convince people that the decision was unfair. The second quietly accepts the disappointment, continues improving his skills, and lets his work become impossible to ignore. Months later, one is remembered for his complaints. The other is remembered for his competence. The difference wasn't talent, it was peace. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding deserves a correction. Sometimes the strongest response is to continue living your values without seeking permission to do so. A peaceful person doesn't waste time proving who they are. They simply become impossible to mistake. Point 2. Guard your mind from constant noise. Your mind is under attack every single day. Notifications compete for your attention. News competes for your emotions. Social media competes for your identity. Everyone wants a piece of your focus because your attention has become one of the world's most valuable resources. The tragedy is that most people never notice what all this noise is costing them. A distracted mind cannot be a peaceful mind. When you constantly consume other people's opinions, lifestyles, achievements, and arguments, you slowly lose the ability to hear your own thoughts. Comparison replaces gratitude. Anxiety replaces clarity. Busyness replaces purpose. The fake world doesn't always deceive you with lies. Sometimes it simply keeps you too distracted to discover the truth. The Stoics believed that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thoughts. If your thoughts are constantly borrowed from the crowd, your peace will always depend on the crowd. Be intentional about what enters your mind. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you allow to grow there will eventually shape your character. If you continually plant fear, outrage, envy, and comparison, don't be surprised when peace becomes impossible to find. Protect your attention with the same seriousness you would protect your home. Read books that deepen your thinking. Spend time in silence. Take long walks without needing constant entertainment. Create space where your own mind can breathe. Real life example. Think about someone who wakes up and immediately reaches for their phone. Within minutes, they're comparing themselves to strangers, arguing with opinions they didn't ask for, and carrying the emotional weight of events they cannot control. Now compare that to someone who begins the day with quiet reflection, exercise, prayer, journaling, or reading. Both live in the same world, but only one has chosen what enters their mind first. That single decision changes the direction of the entire day. Key takeaway: if you don't control your attention, someone else will. Peace doesn't happen by accident. It is built through deliberate choices about what you consume, what you ignore, and where you allow your mind to dwell. Guard your mind, because whatever controls your attention eventually controls your life. Point 3. Accept that not everyone deserves access to you. One of the biggest misconceptions about being a good person is believing you must always be available. We answer every call, entertain every conversation, tolerate every form of disrespect, and keep giving chances to people who repeatedly prove they don't value us. Some people mistake unlimited access for kindness. In reality, unlimited access often becomes an invitation to drain your peace. The people around you shape your thinking, influence your emotions, and, over time, determine the direction of your life. That is why choosing who gets close to you is one of the most important decisions you will ever make. A fake world teaches you that setting boundaries is selfish. It tells you that saying no makes you cold, that distancing yourself makes you arrogant, and that protecting your time makes you unfriendly. So you continue saying yes while silently becoming exhausted. You allow manipulative people to occupy your thoughts. You keep relationships alive long after trust has died. You stay connected to people whose only contribution to your life is drama, criticism, and emotional confusion. The Stoics understood that peace cannot survive where chaos is constantly invited. You cannot expect a calm mind while giving unrestricted access to people who repeatedly disturb it. Boundaries are not acts of rejection. They are acts of self-respect. A wise person doesn't hate everyone. They simply recognize that not everyone belongs in the inner circle of their life. Respect should be earned. Trust should be earned. Access should be earned. Some people deserve your love from a distance. Others deserve your forgiveness without your presence. There is a difference. Protecting your peace sometimes means limiting who gets your time, your attention, and your emotional energy. Real life example. Imagine a man who has a friend that only calls when he needs money, advice, or a favor. Every conversation leaves him emotionally drained. Yet he continues answering because he doesn't want to appear rude. Years pass, and he realizes something painful. He has been loyal to someone who was only committed to convenience. The day he began setting healthy boundaries wasn't the day he lost a friend. It was the day he stopped losing himself. Key takeaway: you are not responsible for keeping everyone comfortable. You are responsible for protecting your character and your peace. Choose your circle carefully, not because you think you're better than others, but because your future depends on the company you keep. Point 4. Detach your self-worth from people's opinions. Most people live as prisoners without realizing it. Their mood rises when they receive praise. Their confidence disappears when they receive criticism. A compliment gives them purpose. An insult steals their peace. When your identity depends on other people's opinions, your emotional life becomes a puppet controlled by strangers. The fake world is built on validation. It encourages you to measure your worth by followers, applause, status, appearance, and public approval. But public opinion changes like the wind. The same crowd that celebrates you today can ignore you tomorrow. If your confidence depends on applause, you will spend your life performing instead of living. The Stoics believe that another person's opinion belongs to them, not to you. What truly matters is whether your actions align with your values. Everything else is noise. Build your identity on principles instead of praise. Become the kind of person who sleeps peacefully because they acted with integrity, not because everyone agreed with them. When criticism is true, accept it and improve. When it is false, let it pass like the wind. Neither praise nor blame should have the power to define who you are. The strongest people are not those who receive the most admiration. They are those who remain the same, whether admired or ignored. Real life example. Consider an artist who pours his heart into creating meaningful work. One piece goes viral and thousands applaud him. The next receives little attention and critics dismiss it. If he creates only for approval, he will constantly chase trends and abandon his authentic voice. But if he creates because it reflects his values, every piece becomes an honest expression of who he is, regardless of the audience's reaction. His piece remains intact because his identity was never placed in their hands. Key takeaway: never give strangers the authority to determine your value. Praise is pleasant. Criticism can be useful, but neither should become the foundation of your identity. Know who you are before the world tells you who to be, because the person who defines themselves can never be controlled by the opinions of others. Point 5. Choose solitude over fake company. Many people fear being alone more than they fear becoming the wrong person. So they stay in friendships that no longer inspire them. They remain in conversations that drain them. They surround themselves with people who celebrate comfort instead of growth. They confuse being surrounded by people with being genuinely connected. But there is a quiet pain that comes from sitting in a crowded room and realizing you cannot truly be yourself. Sometimes, the loneliest place in the world is fake company. A fake world convinces you that your value depends on how many people know your name, how many friends you have, or how often your phone rings. The result is a generation that is constantly connected, but deeply disconnected from itself. The Stoics saw solitude differently. To them, solitude wasn't isolation. It was an opportunity to return to yourself. If you cannot enjoy your own company, you will spend your life depending on others to escape yourself. That dependence makes you vulnerable to manipulation, unhealthy relationships, and constant disappointment. The fear of being alone often keeps people trapped in places where peace cannot exist. Learn to become your own companion. Spend time in silence without reaching for distraction. Take walks without music. Journal your thoughts. Read books that challenge your thinking. Pray. Reflect. Build a life so meaningful that solitude becomes a place of restoration rather than punishment. When you become comfortable being alone, you stop accepting people simply because you fear emptiness. You begin choosing relationships based on character instead of convenience. That is freedom. Real life example. Imagine two men after a difficult season of life. One immediately fills every empty space with parties, endless scrolling, and people who help him forget his problems. The other quietly steps away. He spends months rebuilding himself. He reads, he learns, he exercises, he reflects, he develops discipline and purpose. Years later, the first man still needs the crowd to feel alive. The second carries peace wherever he goes because he learned that the greatest relationship he would ever build was the one with himself. Key takeaway: never fear walking alone if it means walking in peace. The wrong company will cost you far more than solitude ever will. Protect your peace so fiercely that anyone who enters your life must contribute to it, not compete with it. Sometimes your greatest growth begins the moment you stop chasing people and start finding yourself. And here's the concluding part. The world may never stop pretending. People will continue to wear masks. Some will misunderstand you. Others will judge you, disappoint you, or leave when you need them most. You cannot control any of that, but you can control who you become. Protect your peace by speaking less and living more. Guard your mind from endless noise. Be careful who you allow into your life. Refuse to measure your worth by public opinion. And never be afraid to walk alone when the alternative is losing yourself. Peace is not something you find. It is something you protect every single day. If this message found you at the right time, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Forever Growth because we may never cross paths again if you don't. The algorithm is unpredictable, and this might be the only time this video appears before you. If these words gave you clarity, challenged your thinking, or reminded you of the person you want to become, stay on this journey with us. There are more timeless lessons on stoicism, psychology, discipline, and personal growth waiting for you. And before you leave, tell me in the comments, which of these 5 rules do you need most in your life right now? Until the next video, protect your peace, protect your mind, and keep growing forever.